They were not born but forged. When the galaxy fractured and the skies themselves split in half, when demons spilled across the stars and the Astronomicon flickered like a dying flame, the Imperium faced a fate worse than death. It was not the end that came for mankind, it was the unraveling. In that cataclysmic darkness, a single light returned. Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, son of the Emperor, stepped from legend and into the dying day. And with him, he brought salvation in the form of warriors, unlike any the galaxy had known. These were not mere space marines. They were something more, larger, stronger, faster, born not of chapter tradition, but of design. Primaris Marines, among the vast multitude of new warriors, forged in secret by Archmagos Belisarius Call, and unleashed during the Indomitus Crusade, a single chapter stood out for its blade-bound code and noble savagery: the Silver Templars. They were not given birth through tradition. They were not heirs to a long line of battle honors. They were a sword drawn fresh from the forge, glowing white-hot and untested. The Ultima founding was not a mere expansion of the Adeptus Astartes. It was a resurrection, a desperate push to breathe life into a failing body. Tens of thousands of Primaris warriors were created in secret vaults on Mars, gestated in cryptic stasis chambers, their minds filled with simulated wars, battle rituals, and the flawless legacy of Guilliman himself. From among these, certain battle brothers were deemed suitable not only for war, but for leadership. One such figure was Achilleos Zenaris. He was not born on a hive world or raised on some death world where only the ruthless survived. He was sculpted in the laboratory fortresses of Call, raised on codified honor and cold, martial perfection. Yet in him stirred a rare flame, the capacity to inspire, to lead, and to channel fury through focus. Guilliman recognized this. In a ceremony witnessed by no less than 3 Lord Commanders and the Archmagos himself, Zenaris was given command over one of the newly sanctioned chapters. They would be given the name Silver Templars, both an echo of their sword-bound code and a reflection of the polished armor that would become their mark. Where other chapters were founded based on ancient traditions and genetic legacy, the Silver Templars were rooted in philosophy. They were to be paragons of personal mastery. Dueling would not be mere formality, it would be theology. A warrior would not be judged by his zeal alone, but by the precision of his blade and the composure of his mind. Their gene seed, drawn from the noble stock of the Ultramarines, was tested and true. But it was the temperament cultivated in these warriors that made them something different. They were cold fire, restrained, but deadly. The initial cadres of Silver Templars were formed during the second wave of the Indomitus Crusade. Guilliman, aware that the Imperium Nihilus was choking in darkness, unleashed them alongside dozens of other newly forged chapters. They were dispatched not to old strongholds, but to bleeding front lines, places where ancient chapters had fallen or could no longer hold. The first deployments were swift and decisive. Records of these early engagements remain partially classified under segmentum command, but fragments speak of lightning-fast purges on the edges of the Cicatrix Maledictum. In the shattered hive cities of Threxus, Silver Templar squads performed drop-pod strikes directly into cult-burdened cathedrals, executing heretic warlords in single combat amid burning pews and collapsing arches. They did not fight with overwhelming firepower, they fought with efficiency. Where other chapters might shell a fortress into oblivion, the Silver Templars breached its gates, sought its champion, and cut him down before his followers. Their strategy was surgical, their style uncompromising. Even in these earliest hours, the essence of the chapter's future was clear. The Ultima founding granted the Imperium more than firepower. It gave it new hearts, new minds, and new codes. The Silver Templars embodied all three. When it came time to assign them a homeworld, Guilliman was deliberate. The Silver Templars had proven themselves adaptable and honorable, but they lacked roots. For warriors who measured their worth in single combat, in rites of bladecraft and martial excellence, a home had to be chosen that echoed that same spirit. And so they were granted Novaris. The decree was short, but its meaning immense. Guilliman wrote, "Let them be as their steel, tempered, sharp, unyielding. Let them take Novaris and make it a crucible." With that, the Silver Templars were born not merely in name, but in place. The chapter took root on the feudal world like a sword planted in the earth, ready to be drawn again and again. But in this founding, no traditions followed them. No ancient relics passed down from the Great Crusade, no honored heroes of old. Only the future stood ahead, gleaming like a newly polished blade. From the vaults of Mars, across the stars, and into the pages of the Imperium's living history, the Silver Templars came not with fanfare, but with duels, with victory, with focus and fury. This was no ordinary chapter. This was no mere successor. This was the blade the Emperor didn't live to draw, now unsheathed at last. It is said that a blade is only as strong as the forge that tempers it. For the Silver Templars, that forge is Novaris. Nestled on the fringes of the Ultima Segmentum, Novaris is a world shaped not by politics or industry, but by conflict and craft. Long before the Silver Templars ever set foot upon its soil, Novaris was already a world of warriors. Its sky is forever storm-dark, broken only by streaks of sun piercing the clouds like the edge of a blade. The land itself is jagged, an endless ocean of craggy mountain spines and shadowed forest valleys, each more perilous than the last. There are no great cities, no industrial hives, no towering spires belching smoke. Novaris is raw and wild, and its people are reflections of that terrain. Hardy, proud, and bound by an unspoken code of honor. To outsiders, Novaris may seem primitive. Its inhabitants still forge their weapons by hand, still train in open-air dueling pits, still bind wounds with leather and cloth. But this is not ignorance. This is tradition. On Novaris, to wield a blade is not merely to fight. It is to become. The Silver Templars did not conquer Novaris. They earned it. When Guilliman decreed the world as their home, it was not a matter of bureaucratic convenience. The world had already endured the long torment of chaos. For decades, a warband of the flawless host, heretic Astartes, dedicated to Slaanesh, had enthroned themselves over the native clans. The invaders did not seek simple control. They sought corruption. Novarian warriors were forced to duel for amusement, not honor. Their swords were twisted into totems of perversion, their culture mutilated by whispers of excess and self-indulgence. The soul of Novaris had begun to wither. But Guilliman knew something the flawless host did not. The spirit of a true warrior cannot be broken. It can be buried, bent, tortured, but not broken. When the Silver Templars descended from orbit in silent precision, they made no grand proclamations, no threats, no sermons. They simply landed at the site of an execution, where the last unbroken Novarian sword priest was to be slain before the leering champions of Slaanesh, and walked into the circle. A single Silver Templar stepped forward. Records suggest it may have been Captain Vitalius Ducas, then newly promoted. Without a word, he drew his blade and gestured. The Chaos Champion laughed, drunk on warp spice and praise. He charged. He died within seconds. The Silver Templars did not issue ultimatums. They began the purge. What followed was not a war, but a reckoning. Squad by squad, the Templars moved across Novaris like living retribution. They did not bomb the cities. They did not annihilate the heretics from orbit. That would have been too simple and too dishonorable. Instead, they hunted them, each duel recorded in the Codex Argentum, the chapter's own sacred tome. Acolytes of Slanesh were pulled from their thrones and challenged in single combat. When they refused, they were cut down anyway. When they accepted, they were outmatched, outthought, and slain with clean, perfect strikes. The people of Novaris watched as their would-be gods were broken by silver-armored warriors who fought not for cruelty, but for balance, who didn't scream when they struck, who didn't kill for pleasure, but for purpose. By the campaign's end, the flawless host had been shattered, their warp-spawned masters banished, the dark shrines burned. But the most lasting impact was not the liberation itself. It was what followed. The Templars remained. They walked among the liberated. They studied the ways of the Novarian warrior houses, ancient clans with codes as old as Terra's buried past. They learned their duels, their rites, their forge songs, and more importantly, they respected them. When the time came to build a fortress monastery, the Silver Templars did not raise it atop the world's tallest peak or construct a monolithic tower of ceramite and steel. Instead, they chose a site sacred to Novarian tradition, the dueling circle of Colossus, a massive natural amphitheater carved into the bones of a mountain, where warriors had once come to prove their mettle in times of succession and strife. There, they constructed their bastion, not over the tradition but into it. The Colossus became both fortress and crucible, a place where Novarian steel and Templar discipline would become one. Novaris did not become a recruitment world by fiat. It became one through earned loyalty. Every year, when the storm seasons fade and the sky clears just enough for stars to be glimpsed, the trials of temperance begin. Young warriors, both men and women, from every village, clanhold, and fortress city, travel for days through mountain passes and forest trails, seeking to test themselves in the Colossus pits. They duel not for victory, but for recognition, for a glance from the silent, silver-armored observers who stand at the edges of the arena like living statues. Those who survive the trials are marked, not by ink or brand, but by the nod of a Templar chaplain. They are taken, not in chains, but in honor. For them, the mountain path does not end. It only begins, winding ever upward into transhuman rebirth. The Silver Templars see Novaris not just as a source of warriors, but as a soul, a place of fire and silence, of tradition unmarred by technology's excesses, a forge for character as much as flesh. In turn, the people of Novaris worship the Templars not as gods, but as exemplars. They do not build cathedrals, they build dueling shrines. Sword priests recite litanies not from ecclesiarchal scripture, but from the chapter's own war oaths. Children sleep with wooden swords beneath their beds, dreaming of someday crossing blades in the Colossus and earning a place among the stars. But not all is ceremony. The world itself is perilous, and the wilds beyond the clanholds still hide remnants of the heretic past. Mutants still crawl in the ice caves of Mount Terravon. Warp-touched beasts still haunt the Blackwood groves. And from time to time, the skies above Novaris grow red, not with sun, but with warning. The Silver Templars do not merely rule this world, they guard it. Every chapter company maintains an oath circle sworn to the defense of Novaris itself. If the skies break open, the Templars do not wait. They descend. Thus has Novaris become more than a homeworld. It is an extension of the chapter's spirit, a living arena, ever demanding, ever testing. Here, a boy with a wooden blade might one day become a warrior in silver plate. Here, a world of storms has found peace, not through submission, but through the blade. And as the galaxy burns and the Imperium cries out, Novaris remains steadfast, its sons ever watching the stars, their hands never far from the hilt. For the forge burns ever hot, and the Silver Templars are never far. There is no triumph in slaughter, no glory in overwhelming fire, no honor in victory earned through chaos and rage. For the Silver Templars, war is not destruction. It is a discipline, a calling, an art, and every art has a code. Among the many Space Marine chapters of the Imperium, few embrace doctrine with the fervor seen in the Silver Templars, but their code is not one of pages and battle charts, nor the rigid application of force as seen in their progenitors, the Ultramarines. Their code is older than words, older than bolt shells and armor plates. It is written not in ink, but in blood, on the edge of a blade. The code of the sword, as it is known within the chapter, is not simply a guideline or philosophy. It is an unbreakable oath, a martial scripture recited by every neophyte and etched into the memory cores of their chapter's archives. It dictates how a Silver Templar must fight, but more than that, it dictates why. To draw a weapon is to make a statement. To swing it is to take responsibility for the weight of life and death. The code begins with a single line: focus and fury. Those two words, passed down from the earliest days of the chapter's founding, form the beating heart of the Silver Templars' doctrine. Focus, for clarity of purpose, for the quiet of the soul before the storm. Fury, for the storm itself, unrelenting, disciplined, never wild, never wasteful. These are not contradictory ideals, they are halves of a single truth. A Silver Templar does not charge into battle in a haze of rage. His anger is not a weapon flung without care. It is channeled, controlled, honed, like the steel he bears. Before a battle, the warrior kneels. He draws his blade, not for blood, but for reflection. He names it aloud, calls upon the battles it has seen, the foes it has felled, the comrades it has defended. This is the bond martial. It is not merely a ceremonial gesture. It is a rite of fusion, a psychic and spiritual connection between warrior and weapon. For the Silver Templars believe that every blade is more than a tool. It is a witness, and no two blades are alike. Each battle brother forges or earns his weapon through trial. No mass-produced relics handed out by quartermasters. No careless switching of arms between campaigns. The blade is chosen once and kept for life. Should it be broken or lost in battle, the warrior who bore it is marked with shame, often exiling himself from frontline service until redemption is found through great deed or mortal sacrifice. This bond gives rise to an entire dueling culture within the chapter. Unlike other Space Marines who may see combat as a means to an end, the Silver Templars see each confrontation as a test, not of strength, but of judgment. Enemy champions are not targeted merely because of their tactical worth. They are sought out because a warrior worthy of battle must be met by another who understands the meaning of battle. In countless campaigns, the Silver Templars have disobeyed suggested kill orders or rerouted from main thrusts to engage enemy leaders personally. Some Imperial commanders see this as arrogance, others as recklessness. But to the Templars, there is no higher calling than to meet the enemy's blade with one's own, and to emerge not only victorious but worthy. It is this very mindset that has led to a unique battlefield presence. While many Space Marine chapters employ combined arms, devastating firepower, or saturation tactics, the Silver Templars march in formation, blade lines drawn, heads held high. They are as much a phalanx as they are a strike force. Their tactics hinge on disruption through confrontation. A single Templar might step through the fog of war to stand before a towering Chaos Lord, ignoring the howling masses around him. While others might seek to eliminate threats quickly and efficiently, the Silver Templar seeks the climax, the moment the enemy's confidence breaks. Not when he is dead, but when he realizes he is outmatched. And this is no theater, no dramatic affectation. The entire chapter is trained to perfection in the arts of personal combat. Swordmasters serve as chaplains. Sergeants are often former duelists of renown. Every neophyte is paired with a veteran in a centuries-old tradition known as the Shadowed Path, where the recruit must defeat a foe of similar rank before ever touching a real battlefield. This level of martial discipline does not end when the battle does. Within the fortress monastery of Colossus, dueling rings are sacred grounds. Templars spar not to outshine one another, but to cleanse the soul. Blades meet under the dim red light of the dueling halls, and each clash is watched in silence by masters and oath scribes. Injuries are not uncommon, but shame is reserved not for the wounded, but for the careless. To strike without focus is to strike in vain. Yet, this culture is not one of cold dispassion. It is one of intensity. A Silver Templar does not fight without emotion. He fights with it harnessed. And when a brother falls, the chapter does not mourn with tears, but with rites. His blade is placed atop his grave, hilt pointing to the stars, and his name is recited not once, but 12 times, once for each of the chapter's companies, so that his memory endures across every corner of their legacy. There have been moments, rare but memorable, when the code has clashed with the Imperium's wider demands. When a planetary governor begged for orbital bombardment rather than precise engagement, the Templars refused. They landed, they fought, they won. But the scars of that refusal lingered, politically if not tactically. Still, the chapter has never apologized. To betray the code of the sword is to betray themselves. Even their records, maintained by the Order of the Ledger, librarians who act as chroniclers and judges, are not organized by campaign or territory, but by duel. Victories are measured not in casualties inflicted, but in champions felled and brothers upheld. And those rare warriors who fall out of step with the code, those who lose themselves in rage or forsake their weapon, are not cast out. They are sent to the Silent Forge, a remote bastion where penitent Templars serve in silence, reforging weapons for years until they are deemed worthy to take up the blade again. It is a painful path, but the code demands it. For the Silver Templars, war is not only survival, it is expression, identity. It is not enough to win. One must win rightly. One must emerge not just alive, but sharpened. And in every clash, in every battle, be it against heretic, Xenos, or demon, the blade rises, straight, steady, a challenge not only to the enemy, but to fate itself. And when that blade falls, it does so with the full weight of a chapter that does not merely fight, it proves. They were untested steel, gleaming, sharp, but yet to taste blood. And in the vast forge of the galaxy's darkest hour, the Silver Templars would be cast not into honor, but into fire. The Indomitus Crusade was not a march, it was a storm. 1 billion war horns sounded as the Imperium, fractured and bleeding, fought to pull itself back from the abyss. With the Cicatrix Maledictum splitting the galaxy in two, and half of the Imperium plunged into warp-shrouded madness, hope had become a rare thing. Entire subsectors vanished overnight. Astropaths screamed themselves to death. Diamonds walked in daylight and star systems flickered out like dying embers. Then came the Primarch. Roboute Guilliman returned from myth, bearing the Emperor's divine authority and the burden of resurrection. But even he, a demigod among men, could not reclaim a shattered empire alone. Thus, he unleashed the Indomitus Crusade, an armada so vast that it darkened the stars, filled with Primaris Space Marines freshly awakened from centuries of stasis, their minds branded with the discipline of Ultramar, and their souls untested in the crucible of real war. Among these ranks stood the Silver Templars. They were not yet a chapter. Not truly. Their heraldry had been assigned, their blades named. But their story was still unwritten, their brotherhood forged more by engineered purpose than shared bloodshed. Guilliman had taken note of their martial precision and clarity of vision, recognizing in them something vital, something pure. They were set aside from the unnumbered suns, marked for a greater destiny. But before they could be loosed into the galaxy as a full chapter, they would be shaped in battle. Their trial began in the outer reaches of the Segmentum Pacificus, where the worlds of the Nemea Reach had fallen silent. Once a minor but stable cluster of industrial systems, it had become a black hole in Imperial records. No astropathic messages, no merchant fleets, no cries for aid. The region was suspected to have been overrun by genie-stealer cults. The truth, however, was far worse. A splinter of Hive Fleet Jormungandr had found its way into the Reach, its tendrils infesting planets one by one. The Silver Templars, alongside elements of the Raptors and Red Scorpions, were deployed under the command of Lord Commander Cassiro Vaughn to investigate and, if necessary, eradicate. It was on the world of Cauldron's Pyre that the Silver Templars first tasted real war. The planet was a frozen husk, once a mining colony ringed by adamantine refineries. Now it was silent, save for the clicking of tyrannid talons on steel. From the shadows of shattered habdomes, the alien threat emerged, not in the howling hordes of a full tyrannid assault, but in the creeping infestation of a splinter fleet designed to infiltrate and consume from within. The Templars were inserted via Thunderhawk, establishing a perimeter around the last known Vox relay station. Captain Zeno Patricius led the strike force, an unproven warrior known for his calm under pressure and his uncanny ability to read an enemy's movements before they struck. It would be his decisions in the battle to come that defined the Templars' legacy for centuries to follow. As they advanced through the twisted wreckage of the colony, the Templars maintained their formation, not out of fear, but discipline. Every movement was measured, every glance a calculation. The bond marshal each warrior held with his chosen weapon was tested in those claustrophobic steel corridors where genie-stealers moved like shadows and the threat of ambush lay around every corner. When the Tyrannids struck, they struck in silence. There were no screeches, no thunderous charges. Only movement, fluid, efficient, lethal. But for every clawed monstrosity that lunged from the dark, a blade rose to meet it. The Silver Templars did not falter. They did not shout. They fought like a river of steel, flowing through the broken corridors and slicing apart the Xenos filth with unflinching resolve. Patricius led from the front, dueling a monstrous broodlord atop a collapsed Prometheum tank. The beast moved like a nightmare, all speed and rage, but the Templar captain held firm. He fought not with brute strength, but with rhythm, each strike deflecting, redirecting, countering, until at last his blade found the creature's throat. The victory was not just personal. With their synapse leader dead, the swarm scattered, confused, and vulnerable. It was a victory carved in silence and blood, but it was not the end. Further scans revealed the hive's root was deeper than expected, embedded within the cooling core of the planet's largest refinery. The Tyrannids had turned the complex into a breeding pit, and if left unchecked, the entire sector could fall. A full retreat was advised. The Raptors, known for their stealth warfare, urged a withdrawal for a more coordinated strike. The Silver Templars refused, not out of arrogance, but conviction. The forge of war demanded commitment. The enemy was before them. The blade had been drawn. It would not be sheathed until the job was done. They descended into the refinery like ghosts, cutting through waves of bioforms in narrow, suffocating corridors. Flamers roared, blades flashed, and in the heart of that hell, as the walls dripped with biomass and the air reeked of chemical rot, The Silver Templars planted charges and fought a running battle through collapsing tunnels to escape. They did not all make it. Dozens of battle brothers gave their lives to ensure the hive would burn. Some were crushed in the explosions. Others were buried in cave-ins, still fighting. Their names are etched into the Codex Argentum to this day, each inscribed beside the name of the blade they bore and the final enemy they slew. When the last Silver Templars emerged from the fire, their armor was scorched, their ranks thinned, but their spirit unbroken. They had proven themselves, not just as warriors, but as a brotherhood. The Indomitus Crusade would carry them onward to battle after battle, against the traitor legions, against orc empires, against the ancient and the unknown. But it was on Cauldron's pyre that they became what they were meant to be. Not an experiment, not a prototype, a chapter. They were no longer forged steel. They were the weapon, and the galaxy would remember the first time they were drawn. A warrior's mettle is not tested in triumph. It is tested when everything breaks. For the Silver Templars, that moment came upon the charred world of Thalassa Secundus. What began as a simple reinforcement mission would become a crucible of fire and fury, where ideals collided with desperation, and a single decision would define how allies saw them for centuries to come. Thalassa Secundus had once been a beacon of imperial industry, an arid hive world that bled minerals and manpower for the cause of the Imperium. Its spires once reached for the stars, its manufactorums fueling war zones from the Segmentum Solar to the Maelstrom's edge. But as the Great Rift yawned across the stars and the Cicatrix Maledictum tore through reality, the planet's fortune shifted with horrifying speed. From within the warp storm's bleeding wound, the Death Guard emerged. Nurgle's bloated children descended on Thalassa Secundus with silent cruelty, bringing with them plague engines, corrupted bio-horrors, and air so thick with filth that even the wind screamed. The Imperial Defense Forces, Valesian Guard regiments, local militia, and scattered elements of the Nova Marines held their ground as long as humanly possible. But against rot that crept into the very bones of the city, human effort alone was not enough. Reinforcements were summoned. The Nova Marines responded with full resolve, sending strike cruisers to orbit and mobilizing multiple companies for an immediate counterattack. But the scale of the infestation exceeded all projections. Hive after hive fell, their streets transformed into organic labyrinths of pustulant decay and twisted flora. Vox channels choked with screams and garbled death rites. Entire regiments disappeared beneath waves of plague zombies and demon hosts. It was then that the Silver Templars answered. The Third Company, led by Captain Zeno Patricius, veteran of the Cauldron's pyre engagement, arrived in system aboard the strike cruiser Fury of Novaris. At the time, many in the sector's command hierarchy questioned the need for another Space Marine contingent, especially one known more for dueling principles than siege warfare. The Nova Marines, in particular, held reservations. To them, the Silver Templars were upstarts, new bloods whose adherence to personal combat seemed ill-suited for a war zone so defiled by attrition and filth. But the Third Company came regardless, and they did not come to request permission. Upon arrival, Patricius requested a direct strike corridor into the heart of High Velgatha, once Thalassa Secundus's capital, now the festering throne of a Death Guard war host. Imperial tacticians advised caution. The city was lost, they said. A new quarantine perimeter must be drawn. The plague had won. Captain Patricius simply replied, "We are not here to draw lines. We are here to bury monsters." The Templars deployed with surgical precision. Drop pods screamed through the diseased clouds, slamming into the rot-choked streets with the force of divine retribution. Flamers roared to life, cleansing paths through spore forests. Blade sergeants moved in trios, cutting through plague zombies in silence, seeking the corrupted champions that led each pocket of resistance. The Death Guard had not anticipated such discipline. They expected fury, berserkers, chaos, but the Silver Templars brought only focus. Each engagement was clinical. Each enemy, no matter how bloated or twisted, was met blade to blade. Templar war doctrine refused to be diminished by the horrors of Nurgle's corruption. Where others saw walls of flesh and bile, they saw weaknesses, movement patterns, exposed joints, fractured bone beneath bloated hides. And they did not hesitate. For 3 days, the Third Company carved a path through Velgata's necrotic core, culminating at the center of the Hive, a once glorious cathedral now reduced to a festering throne room for a lord of contagion named Gurax the Foetid. This beast had ruled over the Hive since its fall, commanding legions of plague marines and demon engines from a throne of bone and rusted iron. It was he who had shattered the Hive's defenses, he who had defiled the local water reserves with demon ichor, he who had made a mockery of the Imperial Creed by wearing the skulls of preachers as a crown. Patricius did not wait for orbital bombardment. He did not wait for full confirmation of enemy numbers. He gathered his finest warriors, each one sworn under the bond marshal, and led a direct assault into the cathedral's heart. The battle was one for the legends. Inside the corrupted sanctum, the very air rebelled. Spores thick enough to choke a Terminator armor's filters flooded the chambers. Demons clawed at the edges of real space, laughing as the Templars advanced. And atop his throne, Gurax waited, nearly 3 meters tall, bloated with the gifts of the plague god, his rusted man-reaper pulsing with sentient rot. Yet still the Silver Templars came. They fought like a tempest, not with brute force, but with that same relentless clarity that had seen them survive the Genestealer dens of Caldron's Pyre. One by one, the diamond engines fell. Plague-bearers evaporated beneath purging flame, and when all lesser threats were laid low, Patricius stepped forward. He did not roar, he did not boast. He merely raised his blade and pointed it at Gurax's heart. The duel was apocalyptic. Where the Death Guard Lord swung in wide, bludgeoning arcs, Patricius danced, stepping between each blow, slicing tendons, probing weaknesses in diseased armor. Gurax's body healed faster than a normal warrior could damage it, but the captain's strikes were precise, each one severing a critical artery, bypassing the regenerative nonsense of the warp. It wasn't rage that fueled him. It was concentration. After 11 minutes of sustained combat, Patricius drove his blade beneath the Lord's jaw and out through the back of his skull. The body remained standing for 3 breaths. Then it collapsed. The Hive broke that day. With their warlords slain, the Death Guard's cohesion dissolved. The remaining enemy forces fled into the Underhive or turned on each other in acts of mindless desperation. But the victory was not clean. The Nova Marines, arriving 2 days later to reinforce what they believed to be a crumbling siege, found the Silver Templars already entrenched in the heart of the city, constructing funeral pyres for the fallen and sealing off warp-tainted vaults. The Nova Marine Command accused the Templars of reckless action, of ignoring proper chain of command, of risking sacred relics by engaging so deep in corrupted territory. Patricius did not respond with anger. He simply presented the corpse of Gurax the Foetid, bound in ritual chains and offered as proof of duty fulfilled. The tension between the chapters did not fade. Where once there had been fraternity, there was now unease. To the Nova Marines, the Silver Templars were wild cards, noble perhaps, but unbound by shared traditions. To the Templars, the Nova Marines were slow, ritual-bound, and cautious to a fault. That rift, subtle though it seemed, would echo for generations. But among the people of Thalassa Secundus, those few who survived, the Silver Templars were something else entirely. They were the warriors who came when no one else dared, the swords who walked into the plague and emerged unstained, the duelists who did not seek glory, only justice. And when the cathedral was finally cleansed, the only mark left behind was a blade driven deep into the pulpit stone. Its hilt bore the mark of the Third Company. Its inscription read only, "Focus and Fury," and beneath it, a single name, Patricius. The siege was over, but the legend had only just begun. There are victories that echo through the stars, sung in the halls of honor and carved into stone. Then there are battles that leave no time for celebration, only silence. The liberation of Novaris was one such battle. A war waged not for conquest nor vengeance, but reclamation, the reclaiming of a world soul. Novaris had been granted to the Silver Templars by Roboute Guilliman himself, a gift, a test, and a responsibility. Yet by the time their fortress monastery's foundations had been drawn in orbit, it was already too late. The wound ran deep, deeper than the chapter had anticipated. The flawless host, that depraved warband of Slanesh-worshipping traitors, had not simply occupied Novaris. They had rooted themselves into its soil, into its cities, into the very culture of its people. They did not conquer through brute force, but through seduction, promises, whispers. They arrived before the Templars ever set foot there, long before any Novarian knew what a Primaris Marine even was. In the chaotic aftermath of the Noctis Eterna, as warp storms drowned astropathic corridors and the stars screamed with madness, the flawless host slipped through the veil. They descended upon Novaris like spirits of divine beauty, resplendent in corrupted gold, their armor lacquered in oils, their voices lilting with poison sweetness. And the people, long isolated, desperate for direction, heard them. The first resistance came from the sword priest clans, the elder houses who had always kept the old traditions of honor and martial service. They refused to kneel, and so they were broken, not with war, but with temptation. Their sons were offered rank, power, ecstasy. Their daughters were taken as consorts, twisted into demon hosts dressed in silks, spun from mortal flesh. The bloodline of Novaris cried out, but none came, not until the Silver Templars, Captain Vitalius Ducas, the First Company's commander and master of the blade arts, stood at the forefront of the Templars' descent. He had walked the fields of Ajax, dueled the tyrannid monstrosities of the outer void, and had even stood in audience before the Primarch himself. Yet when he looked down upon Novaris and saw the rot masquerading as culture, his voice was flat and heavy with sorrow. "This is not seduction," he said. "This is desecration." The Templars did not bombard the planet from orbit. They did not ignite atmosphere with lance strikes or unleash mass exterminatus. For Novaris was not an enemy world. It was theirs. It needed to be saved, not burned. They landed at the edge of the Obsidian Gulf, near the city of Darcine, once a place of dueling academies and steel markets, now a bastion of vice and horror. The first encounter was not a battle, but a procession. A parade of beautifully adorned cultists met the Templars at the landing site, their faces painted in powdered bone, their flesh glistening with oil and warp-born pigments. They offered gifts, jewels, song, bodies. The Templars responded with silence. When the cult leader, a once human thing named Seraphine Varel, attempted to embrace Brother Sergeant Gaius Nomikos, she was cut in half before her hands could touch his armor. The duel was silent. One stroke, one soul severed from the warp. That was the beginning. What followed was not a campaign of siege or occupation, but of purification. Across Novaris, the chapter spread. each company assigned a region not to control, but to cleanse. Every stronghold of the flawless host was treated not as a fortress, but as a tumor to be excised. The Templars moved with methodical purpose, eradicating cult nodes, reclaiming ancient dueling halls, and executing corrupted warlords in ritual combat. Yet they did not kill indiscriminately. The Novarians, even those who had once bowed to the flawless host, were not forsaken. The chapter understood what had happened here. These were not willing traitors. They were a people abused, and though their shame ran deep, it could be tempered. In every city liberated, the Templars established circles of restoration. Small, sacred spaces, stone-walled arenas, and shrine chambers where survivors were invited to observe the rites of battle. Not as spectacle, but as memory. The Templars would duel one another beneath the gaze of the people, demonstrating control, honor, and sacrifice. A single misstep, a single wild swing, and the rite would be halted. The lesson would be lost. In this way, the chapter taught again what had been forgotten, that battle was not chaos, that beauty was not corruption, that strength was not cruelty. In the city of Mycon, where cultists had once held children in chain cages and burned old scrolls to light their debauched festivals, a ritual duel was held between Captain Ducas and the demonic champion Caelareth the Magnificent, a former Astartes of the Emperor's children. The demon, clad in a skin of glass and light, wielded a blade that screamed when it cut the air. He danced like a hurricane of elegance, every movement a twisted form of art. Ducas faced him with the silence of stone. His blade, a relic of unknown origin, known only as oath-wrought, did not sing. It did not flash. It spoke. The duel lasted hours, not in real time, but in perception. The Novarians said the world itself seemed to pause, that the storm clouds above ceased to move, that their breath froze in their lungs, until, finally, Caelareth collapsed, his perfection undone by discipline. Ducas stood uninjured, and the people wept. By the end of the campaign, the flawless host had been driven into the mountains, hunted through ravines and cave systems. The final confrontation occurred at the Hall of Echoes, a vast ancient temple that had once been a training ground for Novaris's elite swordmasters. Now it pulsed with warp light, its stone halls defiled by slaaneshi, iconography, and psychic residue. It was there that Ducas faced the last true enemy, Lyrius Soulslaver, the warband's leader and former captain of the Emperor's children. A creature of such unholy allure and martial prowess that entire squads had fallen to him in previous wars. But Ducas did not bring a squad. He came alone. The battle was a trial of perfection. Two masters, one twisted by corruption, the other purified by silence. The duel was not watched. No records remain, only the aftermath. Ducas emerging with his armor cracked, blade chipped, and Soulslaver's severed head clasped in one gauntleted fist. The Hall of Echoes was sealed in the aftermath, its interior sanctified, then collapsed. Novaris was free, but its scars remained. A third of its population had perished. Another third remained psychologically broken, requiring decades of reconditioning. The world's traditions, though preserved in fragments, had to be reborn. And it was the Silver Templars who oversaw that rebirth. Not as lords, but as guardians. The fortress monastery was finally raised atop Mount Colossus, atop the very dueling circle where Novarian champions had once earned their blades. Its halls were constructed not from Gothic spires, but from polished stone and silver steel, reflective surfaces to remind every warrior that he must always see himself clearly. The chapter left one monument in the heart of Darcine, a single blade driven into the stone square where Seraphine Virel had first offered her poisoned embrace. No words, no name, only the weapon. It remains there still, not guarded, not venerated, just waiting. For Novaris remembers, and so do the Silver Templars. In the theater of eternal war, even a sword must know its place within the wider phalanx. The Silver Templars, proud and precise, are warriors born of Guilliman's will, but the Imperium is a vast, cacophonous beast, and in this roaring empire of a million voices, no chapter stands alone. From their earliest campaigns, the Silver Templars have been forced to reckon with more than the Xenos and the Heretic. They have walked side by side with allies whose traditions clashed with their own. They have marched under banners not theirs, and they have stared down Imperial commanders with more concern for bureaucracy than battlefield. Some might call this political, others survival. For the Silver Templars, it is simply the cost of duty. The Imperium, fractured though it may be, is not without organization. Segmentum command, planetary governors, rogue traders, ecclesiarchal missions. Each operates within its own doctrine, hierarchy, and assumptions. Into this turbulent web, the Silver Templars have often been cast as newcomers. An enigma in silver and gold, a blade that does not bend. Their first true test in the tangled net of Imperial cooperation came during the Umbris Convergence. The world of Umbris, a shrine planet near the Gathalamor stars, had fallen under siege from an unexpected foe. Not Xenos, not heretics, but corrupted abhumans, once considered stable under Imperial doctrine, now turned feral and unpredictable. Their mutations, once slight, had accelerated into monstrous extremes. Entire pilgrim convoys were slaughtered. The planet's atmosphere burned with warp residue. The Adepta Sororitas had responded first. Battle Sisters of the Order of the Sacred Flame established a perimeter around the Basilica Incarnadine, the primary religious hub of the world. Their mission: to hold the sacred relics of Saint Dionia until reinforcements could arrive. The call for aid was broadcast across the stars, and the Silver Templars answered. A detachment of the Second Company, led by Lieutenant Arius Morn, made planetfall within 3 days of the request. They found a world writhing in mutation. The corrupted abhumans had built twisted engines of flesh and steel, rolling across the plains in convulsing herds. The air crackled with unnatural energy. But what stood out most to Morn was the sisters themselves. The Order of the Sacred Flame was unyielding, its warriors ablaze in crimson and gold, their voices rising in hymn even as they fought tooth and nail against unspeakable horrors. But their views on honor, combat, and ritual clashed immediately with the Silver Templars' own methods. When Morn approached Canoness Viridia with his tactical plan, one centered around isolating the enemy champions and severing their chain of command, he was met with disbelief. "We do not duel abominations," she said. "We burn them. To the sororitas, every mutant was to be exterminated en masse. No need for precision, no room for nuance. To the Silver Templars, this was wasteful, even dangerous. The corruption had hierarchy, purpose. Someone or something was guiding it. In a rare moment of compromise, Morn agreed to split the war effort. The sisters would lead a purging offensive in the south, while the Templars struck north into the Vale of Screams, where intelligence suggested the presence of an organizing force. The Templars moved with clinical efficiency. Their approach was silent, structured. They advanced without praise or song. Deep within the Vale, they found the truth. A demon host, bound in runes of corrupted ecclesiarchal script, led the abhuman tide. Once a preacher, he had merged with a minor demon of Tsinch, mutating into a sentient, warping entity of claw, chant, and entropy. Morn faced him alone. The duel was not clean. The demon shifted forms with each strike, once a child, once a beast, once a mirror of Morn himself. But the Templar did not falter. He invoked the litanies of precision and moved with the grace of a duelist who saw not flesh, but angles. His final blow cleaved through 3 illusions before striking true. With the demon host destroyed, the abhumans fell into confusion and madness. Days later, the sisters stormed through the remains with cleansing flame, purging the remnants. When Canoness Viridia learned of the Templars' victory, she offered no praise, only a nod. But to the Silver Templars, that was enough. They had done their duty, not for glory, but because the enemy demanded it. That uneasy alliance would echo into future conflicts. In the galactic south, on the agri-world of Nexus, a far more cooperative relationship blossomed, this time with elements of the Astra Militarum. The Nexian 12th Iron Striders, known for their disciplined artillery batteries and firm chain of command, were facing an Orc incursion that had grown beyond containment. The Orcs, led by a monstrous war boss named Big Tooth Gorga, had already razed 3 of Nexus' largest grain cities. The Imperial Guard fought valiantly, but lacked the means to break through the Orcish front lines. Enter the Silver Templars. 2 companies were deployed, with Chief Librarian Ares Ionis directing their maneuvers. Where the Guard held the line, the Templars cut through. They launched nighttime blitz raids on Orcish command towers, assassinating nobs and sabotaging supply lines. Ionis himself led a psychic assault on the Orc Weirdboy Conclave, engaging in a psychic duel beneath the twin moons of Nexus. Witnesses reported lightning splitting the skies, forming a halo around the librarian's blade as he drove it through the heart of the lead Weirdboy. The respect between the Guard and the Templars grew naturally. Captain Vel Lorthan of the 12th said in his post-campaign report, "They do not boast. They do not sing. But when the enemy breaks, they are already behind them." Yet not every alliance was built on mutual respect. Tensions ran high during the joint operation on the Forge world of Pirendoltari, where the Templars fought alongside elements of the Skitari Legio Cybernatus. The Mechanicus, ever rigid and cold, demanded total adherence to protocol. The Silver Templars refused to wait for data blessings or Martian auguries. They acted. When a Necron tomb complex erupted beneath the Manufactorum sprawl, the Templars charged in. They ignored the red-robed tech adepts shouting of heresy and unsanctioned incursion. They destroyed the Necron cryptech and disabled the resurrection protocols. But in doing so, they also damaged a Mechanicus data vault believed to contain STC fragments. A week later, Archmagos Krenar filed an official censure with Segmentum Command. The Templars filed nothing. Their blades had spoken. What remains undeniable is this: wherever they go, the Silver Templars evoke a response. To the Adeptus Sororitas, they are cold but useful. To the Astra Militarum, they are precise and honorable. To the Mechanicus, they are unpredictable and dangerous. To many fellow chapters, they are a contradiction, noble successors of Guilliman who refuse to march in lockstep. Even within the Adeptus Astartes, whispers persist. The Nova Marines remain wary, especially after Thalassa Secundus. The Genesis chapter has openly criticized the Templars' lack of deference to tradition. Only the Raptors and the Emperor's Spears have voiced any admiration, perhaps recognizing in them a shared pragmatism masked by ritual. But the Silver Templars do not care for opinion. They care for the duel, they care for the code, they care for the sword. And so they move from campaign to campaign, weaving through alliances like a blade through cloth. Sometimes accepted, sometimes feared, but always necessary. For in a galaxy of alarms and uncertainty, one truth remains: when the Templars arrive, the enemy will soon kneel or bleed. They were forged for battle against the traitor's whisper and the daemon's howl. But in the vast black of the void, where ancient empires stir and alien minds dream in languages not spoken since Terra was young, the Silver Templars have found enemies far removed from the heresies of men. Enemies that do not reason, that do not relent, that care nothing for honor. And yet the Silver Templars meet them blade for blade. In the cold, nothing between star systems, among forgotten moons and grave worlds left to rot after the Age of Strife. The Silver Templars have crossed swords with nightmares that do not bleed, and still they fight. For in every alien tyrant, in every brutal warlord, they see not only a threat, but a test. One of their earliest known Xenos campaigns came against the orcs of the Cragspire Gulf, a lawless region of broken mining colonies and asteroid habitats long overrun by green-skin empires. The Templars, newly ascended as a full chapter, sought to carve a corridor of stability through the Gulf to protect Novaris' flanking systems. It was not a crusade. It was not sanctioned by the High Lords. It was necessity. The Cragspire orcs were led by war boss Rarguk Ironskull, a beast of legendary girth and cunning. Unlike most orcs, Rarguk did not charge blindly. He fortified, built, planned. His fleets used gravity slingshots around dead stars, launching surprise asteroid barrages at unsuspecting mining operations. Imperial Navy assets sent to intercept were lured into ambushes where rock fortresses spat magma and scrap cannons with lethal coordination. The Templars' answer was not overwhelming firepower, it was infiltration. Under the leadership of Captain Corvin Aratos of the 5th Company, the chapter launched a silent war. Strike cruisers hid behind comets, void suits replaced drop pods. Blade teams drifted in silence, boarding orc hulks from the outside, carving through bulkheads in dead silence before slaying command knobs in their war chambers. The Templars began targeting Wah architects, the mech boys, pain boys, and weird boys that kept Rarguk's war machine functioning. They didn't torch the fleets. They decapitated them. Bit by bit, the Orc Empire splintered, falling to infighting as its leadership vanished. The final confrontation came not in open battle, but aboard Rarguk's flagship, an asteroid hollowed into a death barge called Da Killforge. Aratos led the assault himself, dueling the war boss on a gantry above a reactor core. The Orc wielded a hammer the size of a dreadnought's arm, but Aratos had speed, and more than that, patience. He danced between swings, reading every twitch of muscle until the beast overextended, and the captain drove his power blade through its collarbone and into the spine. With their boss dead, the Cragspire orcs fell to anarchy. The region stabilized within 6 weeks. Trade routes reopened. Novaris was secure, but the void remembers. Years later, on the far edge of the Ganymede Drift, the chapter would face an enemy even older than the orcs, one that did not build or breed, but awaken. A salvage mission led by the rogue trader Cleon Vorelis had unearthed what he believed to be ancient Dark Age machinery on the moon of Irides. When he activated it, the stars changed. A Necron tomb world stirred. Within days, the surface of Irides fractured into hexagonal segments, each rising or sinking, as if the world itself breathed. Monoliths clawed into the sky like obsidian knives, and from beneath the earth came the silence of steel. The Silver Templars responded with 3 companies, led by Grand Oathkeeper Lampros Hecaton. Unlike others who might have opened with a full-scale bombardment, Hecaton understood the nature of what they faced. The Necrons were not a tide to resist, they were a puzzle to solve. Deploying in staggered formations, the Templars began to map the tomb's activation patterns. They found that certain energy signatures triggered full awakenings, while others allowed infiltration teams to move undetected. Guided by this information, the Third Company slipped into the tomb core, while the Seventh staged mock assaults on the periphery. Inside the vaults, the Third encountered not warriors, but constructs, blade-wielding Lich God, silent and relentless, each moving with a grace that mirrored the Templars' own. What followed was not war, but an eerie mirror duel. For the first time in recorded history, the Templars faced an enemy whose mastery of the blade rivaled their own. Brother Sergeant Kalos of the Third, noted for his mastery of the reverse guard style of Navarus, faced a Lich Guard captain within a chamber shaped like a black cube, suspended by unknown gravity tech. Neither spoke, neither blinked. The duel lasted 27 minutes. The kill strike was a downward arc, perfectly timed, splitting the Necron in half from crown to hip. Kalos was mortally wounded in the process. He bled out in silence. But before he died, he passed his blade to his second, whispering a single phrase: "Technique never yields." That blade, Lament's edge, now rests in the vaults of Colossus. Its edge is flawless. Elsewhere, the Templars have battled the cunning of the Drukhari, the twisted remnants of Eldar civilization. On the pleasure world of Vera Prime, a series of abductions drew the Sixth Company into a shadow war. Civilians vanished without trace. PDF units found mutilated bodies strung like marionettes, left as gifts. At first, the Sixth believed it a chaos cult, but the marks told a different story: precision incisions, organs removed with surgical grace, blood drained clean. Drukhari Hymonculi at work. Captain Dorn Arix of the Sixth authorized a trap. Using himself as bait, he faked a patrol wound and deliberately isolated his squad. The Drukhari came for him under moonlight, masked, graceful, whispering in a tongue that felt like razors. He killed the first four before the fifth escaped. Over the following nights, the Templars deployed motionless squads, statues in armor, waiting for the enemy to strike. And when they did, the traps snapped shut. The fighting was brutal. Drukhari excel in misdirection, teleportation, and psychological torture. But the Templars responded with clarity. For every ambush, they had a counter. For every illusion, a method of dispelling it. When the Archon responsible was finally cornered atop the ruins of the Scarlet Spire, he offered terms, promises, even flattery. Arix answered with a clean decapitation. They left his body on a spike facing the webway portal. No message, no symbol, only a corpse to remind the Drukhari what waited on the other side. To date, the Templars have not engaged a full Tyrannid hive fleet, but they have battled splinters, organisms lost in the void, or leftovers from past wars. In the asteroid belts near the planet Pharesis 4, the chapter engaged a Genestealer-infested mining flotilla, cutting through zero-gravity environments in silence, striking with monomolecular precision. Brother Lexiconum Imperium wrote after the conflict, "They do not understand honor, but they fear pain. They learn to fear the blade. Each alien foe brings a new lesson, a new adjustment, a new refinement of doctrine. The Silver Templars do not hate Xenos out of blind dogma. They hate them because every breath they draw is a threat to human sovereignty. Every act of resistance by the alien is an affront to the Emperor's dream. And so they meet every foe, green, silver, pale, or serpentine, not with horror, but with readiness. They analyze, they adapt, they overcome. Their blade does not tremble before the strange, it sharpens against it. In the end, the Xenos perish not because they are hated, but because they cannot match the weight of discipline. For in the void, where reason fails and fear blooms, there is still one thing alien warlords learn to dread: the silent shimmer of silver, and the certainty that somewhere in the dark, a blade has already been drawn. Before they are warriors, they are aspirants. Before they take a blade, they take a vow. Before they die, they kneel. The Silver Templars are not simply fighters, no more than a sword is simply a tool. Every brother is shaped, refined, honed. Each life within the chapter is a ritual, a path walked with iron discipline and sacred silence. And nowhere is this more evident than within the forge of their brotherhood, the fortress monastery of Colossus. Perched atop Mount Colossus, where the wind screams like a living thing and the air is thin as a whisper, the monastery is a structure both ancient and newly wrought. Its foundations were laid upon the blood of Novarian ancestors, duelists, warlords, and sword priests whose ashes were interred into the very mortar. The halls are narrow, echoing with footfalls and the distant clang of weapons. Every chamber is functional. Every wall bears the scars of blade drills and battle rites. To walk through Colossus is to walk through memory, but not one's own. The neophyte begins not with armor or weapon, but with stone. Upon arrival, often as a youth plucked from the circles of temperance after surviving the harrowing dueling trials, the aspirant is handed a hammer. He is given no instruction beyond this. Break the slab. The slab is carved from obsidian quarried from the black cliffs of Novaris. It bears the Novarian glyph for self. The hammer is unbalanced, the task impossible. But it is not the stone that is meant to break. It is the boy. Days pass, muscles ache, fingers bleed. Many aspirants swing until exhaustion, others until despair. Some strike with fury, fewer with precision. But only when the aspirant ceases to strike mindlessly, when he learns the tempo of pressure, angle, and control, does the stone begin to yield. Only then is he deemed worthy to step into the next chamber. It is a lesson. Everything is a lesson. From there, the transformation begins, both spiritual and surgical. The neophyte undergoes the long and agonizing implantation of the Primaris organs, the Belisarian furnace, the Magnificat, the sinew coils, and 20 other enhancements sculpted by Call's genius. The process takes years. Every new phase must be earned. Nothing is given freely. The body changes, but it is the mind that the chapter watches. Each neophyte is assigned to a senior warrior, forming a dyad known as the Blade Bond. This is no simple mentorship. The veteran does not teach. He watches, corrects, punishes. He leads by example, and the aspirant follows not with words, but in mirrored motion. One famous example is the account of Brother Evandros and his mentor, Seraphan Drax. For 3 years, they never spoke a single word to one another. Evandros learned every form by mimicry, every stance, every strike. When Seraphan finally fell during the skirmishes on the wound of Tykara, Evandros retrieved his blade, wept once, and completed the mission alone. He was promoted the same day and later inscribed the phrase, "His silence was the only teaching I required," above the threshold to his cell. Within the fortress monastery, life is not idle. There are no days of rest. The forge does not cool. Each hour is dictated by an internal code older than the chapter itself, an unwritten rhythm of ritual and repetition. Morning begins with the vow of steel, a moment of meditation held in the dueling sanctum, where brothers recite oaths over their weapons, not aloud but in the mind. Each Templar must name his blade, reaffirm its bond, and mentally reenact the last battle it tasted. If a strike was missed, he recalls it. If a parry failed, he corrects it in memory. Over time, this ritual becomes second nature. Some veterans, it is said, can relive entire campaigns within the span of a single breath. Afterward comes the blood circuit, a training gauntlet that varies each day. No Templar is told the pattern. He must react, adapt. Some days it is a corridor of automated bladed limbs, each strike timed to test reflex and form. Other days, it is a duel with a fellow brother, their identities concealed by mirrored helms, stripped of rank and name, fighting only as equals. Victory brings insight, defeat brings correction. Shame is not in losing, shame is in failing to learn. Beyond training, there is the matter of duty. Not all Templars are deployed at once. Those stationed at Colossus take on the mantle of guardianship, not of the monastery, but of the people of Novaris. Each week, small detachments descend from the mountain to walk among the mortals. They do not interfere, they observe. They remind the people that the blade watches, even in times of peace. One such account is recorded in the ledger of the Sixth Gate. It speaks of a black market uprising in the mountain city of Rivas, when a cult attempted to smuggle Xenos artifacts through the old iron tunnels. The PDF was outmatched, its commanders panicking. But before the fight broke out, a single Silver Templar entered the marketplace. He said nothing. He drew his blade and walked toward the cultist leader. The duel lasted 12 seconds. No civilians were harmed. The cult surrendered. His name was never given. His armor bore no heraldry, only the Novarian glyph for silence. To live at the forge is to breathe restraint. Even in victory, pride is forbidden. Every battle is followed by the stillness, an hour in which no words are spoken. Brothers return to their cells, sit upon stone floors, and replay their actions. Successes are analyzed, failures dissected. There are no laurels, no parades, only reflection. Even death is not mourned in the traditional sense. The fallen are returned to the Hall of Echoes, where their blades are placed upon the altar of iron, and their deeds recited by the Grand Oathkeeper. Their names are not spoken again until the next aspirant successfully completes their first mission. Only then is the name granted once more to the chapter's voice, as if reborn through duty. There is no retirement, no aging halls. Those who grow too slow are sent to the Silent Anvil, a cloister deep beneath the monastery where they serve as weapon forgers, archivists, or, in rare cases, swordmasters who train aspirants with wooden blades. Even here they are dangerous. Even here they are silent. Every corridor of Colossus teaches. The Hall of Hands bears the gauntlets of every Templar who lost a duel in service. Their weapons remain embedded in the wall, never touched again. The Vault of Swords holds the relic weapons of fallen captains, each one bound in black silk until claimed in ritual by a successor deemed worthy. And at the very summit, accessible only once in a warrior's life, lies the Spire of Clarity. It is said that at least once, each battle brother must climb it, alone and unarmed. At the top, surrounded by howling winds and sheer drops, stands a mirror. Nothing more. There, the Templar must look into his own reflection and speak his name aloud. Not the name he bore as a mortal, but the name forged through blade, blood, and duty. Some do not return. Those who do walk back in silence, changed. They are no longer men, no longer aspirants, no longer students. They are Silver Templars. And the forge burns on. Every chapter has a beginning. Every war has a spark. Every brotherhood needs a father. For the Silver Templars, that name is spoken with the weight of reverence. Achilleos Zenaris, the first and only chapter master the Silver Templars have ever known. To outsiders, he is a figure of mystery, a blank face carved into statues, recorded in high Gothic litanies and Crusade ledgers. But to the Silver Templars, he is more than a leader. He is the mirror in which every blade is sharpened. And unlike so many others who rose through ranks of war and deed, Zenaris was not born into war. He was built for it, forged within the vaults of Mars under the watchful eyes of Archmagos, Dominus Belisarius Carl himself. Achilleos Zenaris was among the first generation of true Primaris Astartes. Not the transfigured veterans of firstborn lineages, but one of the originals, gestated in arcane birthing vats, his neural engrams imprinted with thousands of battle simulations, and his genetic foundations sculpted from Guilliman's own Ultramarines gene seed. But what made Zenaris remarkable was not his strength, not his resilience. It was restraint. Even in simulated war zones where other initiates would charge headlong into breach points or bathe in the glory of a victorious kill count, Zenaris would pause, observe, wait. His movements were deliberate, not hesitant, calculated. There were countless occasions in which his blade would remain sheathed while others charged, only to strike once and end the engagement entirely. Some magi found this behavior unsettling. Others considered it inefficient. But Carl did not. The Archmagos saw in Zenaris not a defect of aggression, but a form of control, an anchor amid a rising sea of fury and fire. When Guilliman walked the halls of the Praxis Redoubt during the early days of the Indomitus Crusade, he reviewed the thousands of Primaris warriors awaiting deployment, and in the quiet of one training dome, he found Zenaris meditating alone amid inactive combat servitors, eyes closed, breathing steady. "Why do you not test your strength?" the Primarch asked. Zenaris opened his eyes. "Because strength is not uncertain. It waits. It listens." Guilliman did not respond, but later that evening, a seal was placed upon Zenaris's file, a seal that bore the sigil of the Avenging Sun himself. In the months that followed, the name Achilleos Zenaris became whispered among the command echelons of the Crusade. Assigned to a cadre of high-functioning prototype Primaris units, Zenaris was dispatched into war zones that required precision over presence. He led strike teams into the poisoned hives of Detros Alpha, cutting through Alpha Legion insurgents masquerading as Imperial loyalists. On the desert moon of Syracuse, he dismantled a Necron vanguard by analyzing its awakening patterns and leading his warriors through a catacomb of obelisks without a single casualty. But it was during the Carthusian uprising that his legend began to form. The agri-world of Carthus Prime, a jewel of the Segmentum Pacificus, had been overrun by a psyker cult that had embedded itself in the planetary nobility. The Astra Militarum regiments sent to intervene were turned to ash by warp-born storms. The Ecclesiarchy's emissaries were dismembered in full view of their followers. Zenaris, then leading a formation of 40 Primaris intercessors, was sent not to take the world, but to end the cult. The official records speak only of a classified insertion, but Silver Templar archives recorded under the Codex Argentum tell more. Zenaris and his force infiltrated the planetary palace during a blood moon ritual. While the cultists offered flesh and soul to the warp, the Primaris warriors executed a synchronized breach. No bolter fire, no grenades, only blades. Zenaris fought his way to the center of the ritual chamber, where the high psyker Varnix stood levitating above a circle of shrieking nobles. The duel that followed was not one of brute combat, but of mental war. The psyker attempted to cloud Zenaris' mind with illusions, to make him relive his own death again and again. Zenaris simply closed his eyes. He took 4 steps forward, and then drove his blade through Varnix's throat. With their anchor severed, the cult imploded. The warp storms ceased. The planet was reclaimed. And Guilliman, upon receiving the report, summoned Zenaris personally. There, in a chamber overlooking the void near the Macragge system, Guilliman spoke few words. "You are more than a weapon. You are a whetstone. Others will sharpen themselves against you." Then came the declaration. The Silver Templars, one of the earliest chapters of the Ultima founding, would need a leader, not a destroyer, not a conqueror, but a guardian of ideals, and Guilliman named Zenaris chapter master. Upon the anointment, Zenaris spoke only once. "Then I shall not speak again unless necessary." That vow has largely held true. In all the decades since, Achilleos Xanaris has remained a figure cloaked in silence and certainty. His presence at the fortress monastery of Colossus is rarely ceremonial. He does not sit on a throne. He walks the halls, observes the duels, trains in private, speaks only when an oath is broken or when a path must be chosen. His personal war gear is iconic. The armor of Xanaris, a reinforced Gravis pattern plate, gilded in dark silver and etched with Novarian glyphs. On his back is the mantle of the Anvil, a ceremonial cloak made from the skin of a void beast slain above the orbit of Ithras. And in his hands, always, is the Blade Judicator, a power sword longer than regulation, forged with an alloy so rare the Mechanicus have filed multiple requests to study it, all denied. When the Silver Templars fought in the Raven's Flight campaign in the Nakhmund Rift, Xanaris did not issue orders from orbit. He descended personally into the breach, leading the first company into the demon-infested catacombs of Vanith III. There, he held the breach for 6 straight hours, his presence rallying not just his own brothers, but Imperial guardsmen who had never before seen an Astartes. Guardsman Krent Valo of the Cadian 241st later wrote in his journal, "He didn't speak, didn't shout, but when he raised his sword, the darkness ran." To the wider Imperium, Xanaris is an anomaly, a leader who does not politic, a master who does not boast. To the Silver Templars, he is the standard, the blade at rest, the lion that watches. And they do not question his silence, because in every duel, in every campaign, in every ritual oath beneath the twin moons of Novaris, they feel it, the weight of his gaze, the precision of his vision, and the knowledge that if ever he draws his blade in fury, then the enemy, no matter who they are, is already dead. Across the stars, war never ends. It only moves. And wherever its tide rolls, the Silver Templars have stood ready to meet it, not as vanguards of raw fury, nor as heralds of bombast and crusading spectacle, but as a scalpel, drawn only when the wound festers deep. They are not counted among the glory-hungry. They do not inscribe walls with victory murals. They do not chant their triumphs, but they have been there, at turning points, at last stands, at moments where the Imperium itself held its breath. There are places in the galaxy where their boots have never left a print, but their deeds echo in Vox logs and astropathic relay towers. Their legacy does not ride on the backs of thunderous proclamations, but in the quiet realization of their arrival. When the Silver Templars descend, they do so like a shadow cast across a flame. Precision, control, and always purpose. One such instance unfolded on the world of Brassicus, an agri-world renowned for its atmospheric yield fields and subterranean grain vaults, a planet crucial to the survival of 3 adjacent sectors. When the orcs came, it wasn't a full-scale war. At first, it was sabotage, rumors. Then entire regions of farmland were swallowed by mushroom spores, harvest servitors vanished into sinkholes, and finally, war boss Scragamaw descended with a fleet of cobbled void hulks, tearing through the orbital defenses in hours. With the local Astra Militarum battalions in full retreat and supply lines collapsing, the call for aid was sent blindly into the void. The Imperium hoped someone, anyone, might answer. The Silver Templars did. The Zephyr of Novaris, a strike cruiser bearing the 7th Company under Captain Veron Lathis, responded within 5 days. Only 5 squads made planetfall initially, hardly enough to match the scale of the threat. But the Templars did not land to fight a war of numbers. They came to kill the war. Lathis directed a pinpoint strike through the Vale of Colran, targeting the central command node where Scragamaw's knobs gathered atop desecrated grain silos, using them as makeshift thrones and command towers. The orcs expected artillery, What they got were 10 warriors with blades drawn, storming through burning wheat fields, cutting through lines of Gretchen gunners, and looted tanks with surgical precision. Lothus himself reached the war boss during his mid-feast, severing his left tusk and ending the beast with a clean strike through the skull, in full view of the Green Horde. Panic followed, not among the orcs, but the humans watching. The Templars didn't stay. They didn't deliver speeches or stand for commemoration. They departed within a day, leaving behind only cleared corridors, silence, and the still smoking remains of a war boss's head impaled on a Novarian dueling spike. Other worlds, however, would not offer such clean resolutions. In the Occlusion Wars, where the border systems of the Glorian Expanse were overrun by a cabal of Scientian cults masquerading as merchant houses and religious pilgrims, the Silver Templars were deployed to break a siege on the cathedral world of Virelda Secundus. The world had long resisted full ecclesiarchal subjugation, preferring its own rites and scriptural interpretations. That independence made it vulnerable. The cult had already warped the high clerics into bloated psychic monstrosities. Their sermons bled heresy. Their choirs sang in tongues that echoed like demonic flutes. The second company, led by Captain Nestor Savan, made landfall without preamble. But this was not a campaign of blades alone. It was a war of perception. The Templars found themselves moving through illusions, entire cities rearranged by sorcery and misdirection. Maps changed by the hour, doors led to voids, buildings whispered. Savan adapted. His squads began moving in complete silence, relying on movement patterns rather than visual cues. Each brother was tethered to another via fiber-linked augmetic threads to prevent separation. They advanced not by sight, but by memory. Within 6 days, they reached the Grand Basilica, now a pulsating mass of psionic stone and warp flesh. Savan led the breach himself, slaying the lead magister, iaxial of the shifting path, with a blade forged of null iron and blessed by the Grand Oathkeeper. With the anchor of the sorcery shattered, the illusion collapsed. Entire sections of the Hive City vanished, revealing ruined corridors, decayed cultists, and screaming civilians left in sensory torment. The Adeptus Ministorum offered Savan high honors. He refused them. Instead, he left behind a single manuscript containing a rewritten version of the Novarian Vow of Clarity and departed without word. Perhaps their most harrowing test, however, came during the War of Three Suns in the Dravex cluster, when an ancient Eldari craft world known as Thilarain emerged from the webway with a dire warning, one that Imperial authorities refused to hear. A rift was forming, they claimed, a mirror void, a place where reality folded inward upon itself, and from it the lost would rise. The Inquisition dismissed it as Xenos prophecy. The Mechanicus demanded the craft world's capture. The Silver Templars, watching from orbit, chose to observe. Captain Alarion Vex of the 6th Company led a diplomatic approach, rare for the chapter. With a small honor guard, he entered the craft world unarmed. No records exist of what was said. But when Vex emerged 6 hours later, his face was ashen. He gave a single order: prepare for full-scale incursion. When the mirror void opened, later classified as the Null Spiral, a host of creatures unlike any catalogued in the Imperium's xenological records poured forth. Pale, semi-humanoid wraiths flickering between existence and antimatter, armed with weapons that did not kill, but erased. The Eldari fought beside the Imperium, and at the center of the chaos stood the Silver Templars. They adapted quickly. Blade coils were modified to carry phase disruptors. Bolters fired blessed shells coated with warp-dampening runes. And the duelists, charged into entities that defied geometry, anchoring their own minds in ritual combat patterns that gave them shape amidst the madness. Brother Colossus Epheron, clad in modified Gravis armor, is recorded as having held the breach on Station Virex Theta for 16 minutes alone, his blade disrupting 23 entities before he was finally overwhelmed. His last act was to overload his armor's core, collapsing the station and sealing the rift at its weakest point. The Eldar departed after, offering no thanks, but they left behind a sculpture, half-formed, etched in their strange crystal, a faceless warrior standing against the tide. The Imperium still does not understand why the Templars listened, but the Silver Templars do not require understanding, only readiness. They have bled on snow worlds and scorched deserts, on hive ceilings and under the seas of gas giants. They have stood beside sisters, guardsmen, tech priests, and at times even strangers in silence. But they never compromised their code. They never abandoned the principles carved into the very forge of Novaris. They go not where glory calls, but where the line must not break. And when that line wavers, when the Emperor's light flickers in the wind of war, there are many across the Imperium who whisper one hope through grit teeth and bloodied lips: send the silver. Because wherever they arrive, death becomes a certainty. But so too does justice. There are blades that kill, and then there are blades that remember. Within the Silver Templars, weapons are not forged for war, they are forged for purpose. Unlike other chapters where bolt guns are mass distributed and chainswords handed down with minimal ceremony, the Silver Templars treat every weapon as a sacred extension of the warrior's soul. A brother's blade is not an asset, it is a witness, a partner, a vow made steel. And in the sacred halls of the Colossus Forge, those vows begin. Deep beneath the fortress monastery of Mount Colossus lies a place few ever enter, and fewer still emerge from unchanged. It is known as the Ether Anvil, a sanctified forge complex overseen by Master Artificer Stilicho Varas, the oldest living Templar, and a man whose fingers are more adamantium than flesh. Varas does not speak. His jaw was removed during the Rite of Embers after he lost a duel with a Necron Lich Guard during the Irides campaign. He speaks now only through the language of steel, and that language has created legends. Each battle brother, upon passing his final trial of ascension, descends into the Ether Anvil and begins the rite of the bond. It is here, amid the rhythmic pounding of heated ore and the low chant of forge serfs, that a Templar selects, or forges, his weapon. The process may take days, it may take weeks, for the Silver Templars believe a weapon chooses its bearer as much as the bearer chooses it. A brother may take up a blade from the Vault of Echoes, a chamber where swords from fallen heroes await new hands. Each one bears an etched record of its prior wielder, where it has struck, whom it has slain, and under what oaths it was last raised. These are not relics, they are legacies. One such blade, Veritas Ferrum, is known to have been wielded by 5 different captains over the span of 90 years. Each bearer died with it in hand. Each left a final inscription upon its fuller, a single phrase of regret, triumph, or defiance. When a new Templar takes it up, he adds his own before his first battle. Should he fall, the sword will return once more to wait in silence. For those who choose to forge their own weapon, the challenge is greater. The blade is made from Novarian echo steel, drawn from the mines beneath the Black Cliffs, a mineral said to resonate with the psychic imprint of the one who holds it. The forge fire is stoked by caged plasma vents redirected from Colossus's geothermal core, and the hammer used to strike the blade bears a single word etched in old Novarian script: worth. The newly forged weapon is then quenched, not in water or oil, but in sacred ash gathered from the dueling pits of Novaris. It is said that this ash contains the dreams and deaths of thousands of warriors, and that it imparts a memory to the blade. Whether this is superstition or psychic truth is unknown, but none who carry such a blade doubt its weight. Once a weapon has been chosen or born, it is not simply named. It is bonded. The bond marshal is the cornerstone of the Silver Templars' combat doctrine. Every weapon must be known intimately, not just how it strikes, but how it balances, how it vibrates upon contact, how it rests in the hand during silence. This connection is not symbolic. It is ritualized in a ceremony known as the Oath of Temperance, where the blade is placed upon the brother's bare chest, while an oathkeeper chants the litanies of steel. The warrior must not flinch, not once. After this, the weapon becomes part of the brother's record, not merely listed as Chainsword or Power Blade, but identified by name, style, and even temperament. The Codex Argentum maintains detailed entries on every known weapon in active service, cross-referencing where each has been wielded, how it performed, and whether its wielder upheld or shamed its legacy. And the shame of a lost weapon. That is a wound no apothecary can mend. If a Templar loses his blade in battle, should it be taken, shattered, or left behind, he is stripped of his tabard, his name is struck from the active honor roll, and he is assigned to the Order of the Hollow. These are not outcasts, they are not cowards. But until their weapon is recovered or their honor restored, they do not fight as brothers. They train in silence, they spar without blades, using only hand and will. And when the opportunity arises, they are given leave to track their lost weapon across the stars. Many return, scarred but vindicated, blade in hand. Others do not. Their names remain sealed, their blades presumed forever sundered. Among the highest honors a Silver Templar can achieve is the right to carry a blade name. These are weapons that have become synonymous with their bearers, tools that, through countless duels and campaigns, have taken on identities of their own. Consider Animus, the power sword wielded by Captain Zeno Patricius. Forged in the early days of the Indomitus Crusade, Animus bears a white core that glows not with power, but with a steady, cold pulse. It is said to respond to Patricius's thoughts, shifting its weight mid-swing to match the angles of his mind. No other Templar has ever held it. None have dared. Or Judicator, the sword of Achilleos Xanaris, carved from black adamantine and set with a single Novarian soulstone in the pommel. The blade is older than the chapter itself, gifted to Xanaris by Roboute Guilliman during the anointing of the chapter. It is always sheathed. It has been drawn only 12 times in recorded history. Each time a war ended. Beyond swords, the chapter does not shun modern weaponry. Their bolt rifles, grav pistols, and plasma incinerators are all precision-crafted, maintained with reverence. But even these tools are treated as more than metal. The Oathkeepers and Tech Marines who oversee the Arsenal of Echoes maintain individualized reports on every firearm, every grenade launcher, even every servo-targeter. A single misfire is not a malfunction. It is an insult. The weapon is purified in rites before it is ever used again. And still, the blade reigns supreme. Every squad, regardless of its armament, carries a designated duelist, known as the Edge-Bearer. In times of chaos or leadership loss, it is the Edge-Bearer who steps forward, blade drawn, and assumes command through action rather than voice. The enemy often does not even realize the shift in authority. They only notice that the Silver Templars begin to move with sharper unity, as if bound to the will of the weapon itself. There is no randomness in their arsenal, no waste. Where other chapters take what they need, the Silver Templars earn what they carry. And if they cannot carry it with respect, they do not wield it at all. For a weapon in hand is a promise. A blade unsheathed is a soul revealed. And to dishonor a blade is to dishonor the chapter. So when a Silver Templar walks across the battlefield, bolter at the ready, blade at his hip, know that what you see is more than armor and strength. It is a lineage of steel, a philosophy of war, a man and a weapon bound not by function, but by faith. And when that blade is drawn, it is not drawn in anger. It is drawn because the moment demands truth. A warrior's legacy does not end when his blade is buried. It lingers in steel, in silence, in the way the stars gleam off polished armor under a dying sun. For the Silver Templars, memory is not a thing written in books or engraved on tombstones. It is worn, it is carried, it is lived. And nowhere does this legacy manifest more vividly than in their heraldry and relics, the sigils they bear, the sacred symbols they anoint, and the artifacts forged not merely to endure war, but to echo it. To the outsider, the armor of a Silver Templar is striking, yet unassuming. Gleaming silver ceramite polished to a mirror sheen, traced with soft etchings of Novarian dueling glyphs. The aquila is prominent, not stylized, but pure, golden and broad across the chest plate, unadorned by excessive laurels or trinkets. There is no flamboyance, no ornament for ornament's sake, but every line means something. Every mark tells a tale. The core icon of the chapter is a straight sword overlaid upon an 8-pointed star, distinct from the symbol of chaos, though often mistaken by those unfamiliar with the fine differences. Where the ruinous star twists and breaks, the Templar's sigil is geometric, ordered, radiant. It represents the balance of form, the concept that perfection must be anchored, that a blade, no matter how honed, requires discipline to strike true. This icon is etched into every piece of armor, from the pauldrons of initiates to the shins of aggressors, and even embossed in microscript along the inner rims of their helms, where the wearer cannot see it, but always feels it pressed against the brow. A reminder: the blade does not guide the hand, the will does. Each company carries a sub-heraldry based on ancient Novarian sword styles. The first company, the Guardians of Temperance, wear the downward-pointing blade, a symbol of judgment withheld. The second, the Wardens of the Oath, bear twin swords crossed behind a single flame. The fifth, known for their void operations, bear a sword suspended in orbit over a stylized planet, an emblem of vigilance from afar. Individual warriors may earn the right to bear additional glyphs, always granted by the chapter's oathkeepers following trials, deeds, or acts of valor. These are not given lightly. To earn a single mark may take decades, and while some chapters festoon their armor with purity seals and victory ribbons, the Silver Templars restrict such displays. A warrior is not praised by weight of parchment, but by the silence of those who watch him. Yet it is in their relics that the true soul of the chapter resides, artifacts not merely ancient, but saturated with meaning, history, and unspoken reverence. The greatest of these is the Banner of Echoes, a towering standard woven from silver-threaded ceramite fibers, resistant to flame, shrapnel, and even light itself. This banner bears no words, no chapter name, no emperor's face, only the embossed sigils of those who died wielding it. Each time the Banner of Echoes is raised, it bears a new mark, and it is only ever carried by a warrior of absolute silence, known as the Votary. This Marine relinquishes his voice for as long as he bears the banner. The ritual is not symbolic. His voice box is ritually sealed, his oaths converted to thought speech, and his blade sheathed for the duration of his vigil. He is not meant to fight. He is meant to be seen. In the siege of Dornith's Gate during the Orphean Cataclysm, it is recorded that the Votary of the Third Company walked into battle alone under the banner while surrounded by thousands of cultist gunlines. He did not draw his weapon, did not change his pace, but every Silver Templar who saw him walk through the smoke was overcome by an unshakable calm. When they charged, it was not with rage, but certainty. They broke the line in 17 minutes. Another relic of renown is the armor of Zenaris, named for the chapter master himself, but far older than even the Silver Templars. Crafted during the earliest stages of the Ultima founding, it was forged not in a Mechanicus enclave, but in a secret forge on Luna, under the direct supervision of Archmagos Call. It is a Gravis pattern suit unlike any other. Its surface is obsidian dark until combat is joined, at which point it pulses with silver light, activated by the wearer's neural commands. Every plate is embossed with microfilament glyphs, encoding over 1,000 years of tactical subroutines and dual stances drawn from ancient Novarian archives. No one else has worn it since Zenaris took command, and it is said that should another ever try, the armor would resist, locking joints, dimming power, rejecting the unworthy. Among the weapons of legacy, none are more feared or honored than Judicator, the blade of the chapter master, a long sword of unknown alloy, forged from a fragment of a dead star and cooled in the blood of a Xenos warlord slain during the closing years of the Great Crusade. It has no power field, no disruptor coil, yet it has cleaved demon princes in half and severed dreadnought's armor plating in single strokes. Scholars have speculated on its hidden technology for decades. The Silver Templars ignore them. The blade serves Zenaris, and it has never known defeat. Among the broader chapter, hundreds of relics circulate in silence, lesser known, but no less sacred. Echo Grave, a bolter that once jammed during the Battle of the Hollow Halls, yet still killed 12 enemies when used as a bludgeon by its bearer. It now rests in the hands of a sergeant who has sworn never to fire it, only to wield it when he must earn its trust. The Null Vow, a pair of dueling daggers said to absorb ambient psychic energy. Wielded only by the chapter's shadow duelists, those trained to eliminate rogue psychers and enemy champions under cover of warp interference. The Orb of Quiet Ash, a relic grenade recovered from the corpse of a fallen librarian who died fighting a splinter of Hive Fleet Hydra. When activated, it projects a 3-second silence field that suppresses all sound and energy within a 5-meter radius. Used not to kill, but to begin duels in sacred stillness. Each relic, great or small, carries a burden. Those who bear them are watched, measured, and held to higher standards. To wield a relic is to speak for the dead. To fail with one is to stain more than yourself. This reverence is not superstition. It is code, it is belief, it is memory given shape. Because the Silver Templars do not forget. Not their heroes, not their losses, not the weight of their silence. And when they march, their relics do not shimmer like trophies. They hum, they pulse, they remember. In a galaxy of war, the difference between a weapon and a relic is often overlooked. But not here. Not among the Silver Templars. Here, memory is not just carried, it is wielded. In the heart of the Imperium Nihilus, where the void howls with warp-born storms and the stars flicker like dying embers, there exists no respite, no promise of peace, no end to war. In this crucible where hope decays and madness reigns, the Silver Templars do not merely endure, they advance. Their war cry, focus, and fury is more than a rallying call. It is philosophy made manifest, a creed shouted into the darkness by warriors who refuse to let the galaxy forget that precision is as sacred as fire and discipline as deadly as rage. Unlike chapters that seek glory in the name of the Emperor or vengeance for ancient wrongs, the Silver Templars push ever forward not for what was lost, but for what must never be surrendered. Order, purpose, honor. They are blades held steady amidst a whirlwind of chaos, and the galaxy is a battlefield that knows no end. As the Indomitus Crusade fractured into 1,000 scattered wars, so too did the Silver Templars splinter into fighting formations, each taking up oaths to watch over threatened systems or strike deep into emergent war zones. And in each theater, be it against alien tyrants, heretic champions, or demons that walk like kings, they fight not as berserkers but as students of every engagement. One such example lies in the campaign for Vestinos Prime, a former trade hub on the border of the Grendel subsector. The planet, long lost to warp anomalies and mass hysteria, had become the lair of the word-bearers' warband known as the Choir of Untruth. These heretics had transformed the hives into cathedrals of contradiction, where logic was outlawed and thought itself punished. Imperial scholars who had once served the administratum there were now turned into flesh scriptures, their bodies inscribed with false doctrines and stitched into monuments of blasphemy. A full Imperial fleet, supported by regiments of the Elysian drop troops and 2 knight households, had failed to make landfall through the psychic storms. Vox transmissions had gone quiet. Rumors began to spread. Vestinos was cursed, better left to rot. The Silver Templars did not accept such conclusions. 3 strike cruisers, Novarian Dawn, Fury of Colossus, and Vigilant Blade, broke through the interference by using a calculated sequence of warp path corrections developed by librarian Raylos Viran. The navigational data nearly destroyed the auger systems of the ships in real time, but they emerged intact. The 4th Company, under Captain Leontis Mur, made planetfall at Hive Coraxis. There, amidst the shifting architecture of madness, the Templars did not charge in blind. They anchored themselves. Every movement was measured, every encounter observed. The Choir's demonic allies attempted to confuse and disorient the Marines, twisting the perception of space and turning solid ground into false paths. But the Templars countered the illusions not with machines, but with pattern. Every squad recited the form of 10 cuts, a dueling mantra etched into their minds during initiation. It required visual alignment, physical rhythm, and psychic stability. By moving in unison through corrupted terrain, they anchored one another to reality. They did not break. When the arch-heresiarch known as Odo Nex stepped forth from the altar of collapse, flanked by 2 warp-infused dreadnoughts, Captain Mir did not order an orbital strike. He did not fall back to regroup. He stepped forward alone. The duel was pure. It was deliberate. It lasted 6 minutes. And it ended with Odo Nex's blasphemous form pinned beneath a power blade driven through the corrupted parchment that was once his chest. The silence that followed broke the demonic pact that bound the Hive to unreality. Vestinos Prime was reclaimed, not with fire but with focus. But not all wars offer even this form of closure. In the Veil Nebula, where the stars themselves seem sick and light, bends in ways that defy understanding, the Silver Templars found themselves embroiled in a conflict that even they could not categorize. The Forge world of Thalor Omega, a Mechanicus hub specializing in data spirals and black box archaeotech, had sent out a distress signal, not of invasion, not of betrayal, of silence. Upon arrival, the 9th Company discovered a planet frozen in mid-function. Workers stood in mid-motion, frozen statues. Servitors hung mid-weld, motionless in the middle of sparks. Even the automated defenses responded too slowly, as if time itself had been stretched. Investigations revealed the presence of a Xenos artifact buried in the deepest vaults of the world's core, an impossible sphere that radiated null entropy, disrupting causality. The Silver Templars had never seen its like. Even the Mechanicus files marked it with only a single classification, Red Xenos/Omega Null. The Templars responded not with destruction, but containment. They deployed the Echo Cordon, a rarely used maneuver that involved surrounding a target zone in concentric rings of blade teams, each maintaining strict psychic cohesion and rotating positions every 37 seconds to avoid localized time collapse. The maneuver had been theorized for decades, never deployed. Until then. Over 5 days, the Templars neutralized the zone, extracted Mechanicus survivors, and oversaw the sealing of the vault with a null-grav implosion device sanctified by both Martian rite and Colossian flame. The artifact's nature remains unexplained. The Mechanicus have issued 47 requests to analyze the data. All have been denied by the chapter. Some secrets, the Templars believe, are not meant to be understood. They must only be guarded. Even now, in the wake of the Great Rift's long shadow, the Silver Templars continue to expand their influence, not through conquest, but by accepting the burdens that others would avoid. Their companies remain scattered across the galaxy, answering distress beacons with eerie regularity. It is said that wherever the Imperium forgets a war, the Silver Templars remember it, and they do not forget lightly. Aboard the Zephyr, the chapter's flagship, there is a chamber known as the Hall of the Unending Blade. It contains no relics, no trophies, only a single table. Upon it lies a scroll. Its contents are ever-changing. Names appear without fanfare, names of lost colonies, fallen battle brothers, ships gone silent. It is there that the captains of the chapter come to choose their next engagements, not by edict, not by command, but by oath. Each entry on the scroll is a promise, a challenge, a name in need of a blade. And when one is chosen, a sword is placed upon the name. The scroll accepts it, the name disappears, and the mission begins. For the Silver Templars, there is no rest, no final war, no end to the long road ahead. They are blades without sheaths, oaths without end, warriors without need for spectacle. They do not march to the sound of fanfare. They do not seek statues, banners, or songs. They walk through ash, through blood, through the silence between stars. And they do it for one reason, because the galaxy still needs something sharp, something clean, something certain, a blade, drawn, and never sheathed again. Focus and fury, ever forward, for Novaris, for Guilliman, for the Emperor,